Today we're going to be making cheddar cheese and ramp buttermilk biscuits. We're going to start with 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. Now if you're in the South, that usually means white lily flour, but right now we're in a pandemic and any flour you can get your hands on that's all-purpose, go with it. And just consider yourself fortunate. We're going to add to that 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. We're also going to add in a pinch of salt. I like kosher salt for this. And we're going to give this a quick little stir just to get it incorporated. Now to this we are going to add 6 tablespoons of chilled unsalted butter. I've gone ahead and cut it up into little pieces, little squares. Don't handle it too much because you don't want to get too melty. And we're going to just drop that in. Okay, I'm going to just stir a little bit to coat it in the flour. Now, you can use a pastry cutter for this. I don't own a pastry cutter because I own forks and knives, and I really don't need one more tool. So if you're going to do this with a fork, just press down in the flour and butter mixture here. And what you're going to do is sort of cut the buttery pieces down to about pea size. Now, I'll show you how to do this with knives too. I don't have as much butter in this, so I don't use the knives so much for this process. But just go in, you'll see your butter chunks, and just use 2 knives crosswise and cut up your butter chunks. But I'm going to go ahead and just take it, cut through it with a fork. You can do pie crust this way too. This is how my grandmother taught me how to do things. She didn't own a pastry cutter either, so we don't always need all of the tools. Some of the tools are great and handy, but if you don't have it, you don't have it. And this is not the time to be running out and ordering all sorts of weird stuff or braving the store to find kitchen tools that you're going to use once a year. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. You can make do with what you have. I think we're all making do with what we have right now because you're lucky to find certain things in your stores. You're lucky to find whatever kitchen equipment you have buried in the back of your storage. So don't worry too much. These are, not a very fancy biscuit. They're a very tasty biscuit. But because they're a drop biscuit, you also don't have to worry about breaking out your biscuit cutters and rolling things out. And a drop biscuit is such a nice thing. You don't dirty quite as many dishes and tools in the process of making it. So you don't want these chunks of butter to get too small because you do want them present in your biscuit dough when you put it in the oven. But you also don't want it to be huge chunks in here either. So again, size of a pea is what we're going for. And you can just sort of go in and out looking at it. You can take the butter chunks, smush them up against the side of the bowl to break them up a bit more. But if you start with them already cubed up a bit, you won't have to work so hard at it. You don't want to use softened butter in this. You do want the chilled butter. Use a chilled unsalted butter and you'll be just fine. Okay, so we're going to make a well, and we're just going to go with a spatula, make ourselves a nice little hole in the middle of our flour and butter mixture here. And to this, We're going to pour in a cup of buttermilk. And we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of shredded cheese. This is just a medium cheddar. If you like a white cheddar, if you like, a sharp cheddar, go for it. Whatever cheddar you choose. Now, personally, I just shredded my own. You can use the kind from the bag. That's fine. I used both the larger holes on the grater and finer holes on the grater, so I have sort of a mix of textures. So you have sort of bigger chunks and you have finer shreds. If you have a texture preference, go with that. And you can easily either obtain it in a bag or do your own. We have 1/2 cup of finely chopped ramps. And the thing with the ramps is that you can do 1/2 cup to a cup of ramps in this recipe. A cup of ramps is really heavy. I really wouldn't recommend going more than 3/4 of a cup of ramps. Even if you love ramps, I wouldn't go more than that. I'm using 1/2 cup of ramps. I think that's about the right balance for what I want. You can also substitute shallots. You can substitute chives. I know that ramps, are a very seasonal item. So if you don't have them available or you don't like them, you can substitute. Now, what I'm doing is just gently kind of folding over and stirring this in. We are not going to get a smooth batter, obviously, because we have a lot of chunky bits in here. So don't worry about that. You don't want to overmix, but you do want to get everything sort of incorporated, everything moistened, all of the ramps and the cheese to get distributed. Just give it some gentle folding, little gentle stirring, so you're not too floury around the bowl. Usually you end up, with a little bit of wet at the bottom, so you want to get that up. You want to get the flour from the side sort of mixed in. But again, we're not beating this. We're just sort of gently folding, gently stirring. And that way it all sort of pulls up. It pulls away from the side of the bowl. And it all looks nicely moistened. So I'm going to go grab a cookie sheet and get this ready to put in the oven. So we have our baking sheet or cookie sheet, whatever you like to call it, covered with parchment paper. We're going to have 2 different options as to how to measure these out. You can use a large spoon. You can use a 1/4 cup measuring cup. You're going to aim to have your biscuits be about the size of a golf ball. So you can do that. And I gently roll them a little bit to even out the size. Now you can also do this with a 1/4 cup measure. It's not exactly a 1/4 cup that you need, but if you're trying to be a little more consistent or you hate eyeballing things, that's okay. A 1/4 cup measure will get you about the same result. So up to you and how you like to do this. I'm going to use a measure. I like to scoop it out. And your hands do get dirty, but that's okay. And you can see, as I'm scooping this out, you have all the chunks of ramps, of cheese, of butter. So it's going to be delightful at the end. And you're putting these about 1.5 to 2 inches apart. They spread a little bit, not a whole lot though. Like I said, you want it just shy of a 1/4 cup. You don't want a heaping 1/4 cup. So these are just sort of lumpy and sticky at this particular stage. Don't worry about that. It's supposed to be that way. Normally if you are using a rolled biscuit dough. It's often a little drier. It's not as sticky. So we're gonna keep our little sticky dough right now. And the nice thing with this is you do get some lovely color with the ramps because you have the green of the leaves, you have the white of the bulb, and you have the red of the stem. It's sort of a burgundy purple color really, but it gives you nice color. So they make a lovely little biscuit on your table. And I have a little bit of floury bits in the bottom here, so we're going to try to divide things out for the last two. This one doesn't want to come together as much as I'd like, but we'll make it happen, don't worry. Okay. I'm going to put a little bit extra on this one, a little bit extra on this one, so we get them roughly the same size. So I've got 10 biscuits here and very, very dirty hands. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and put these in the oven for about 12 to 14 minutes on 425 degrees, and then we'll come back. So here we are 12 minutes later with all of our golden, lovely little ramp biscuits. You can see our ramps, you can see our cheddar. They're just a lovely, delightful biscuit to have in any occasion. So I hope you enjoy making them, and thank you so much for watching.